What if I told you that just 5 minutes ago, Meghan Markle's world was rocked by a move from Prince Harry she never saw coming? A single decision. That's all it took. Just one move from Prince Harry, timed with surgical precision, unveiled in the most public way possible, and suddenly, the fragile walls of silence that had built up around Meghan Markle cracked open like glass under pressure. Within minutes, headlines exploded across the globe. But it wasn't just the press that lit up. Meghan herself, tight-lipped for weeks, maybe even months, broke her silence with a private but furious response that's now gone viral. They used him as a puppet. And he still doesn't see it. Before we continue, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. What exactly did Prince Harry do? Why now? And why is Meghan framing this as an orchestrated betrayal from inside the palace, and even more alarmingly, by the very people Harry once cut out of his life to be with her? This isn't just a family feud. This is a high-stakes unraveling, happening in real time, involving a prince, a duchess, the most powerful monarchy on earth, and a line of unseen manipulators pulling strings behind palace walls. This is where love, legacy, and influence collide. To understand why this moment has hit Meghan so hard, and why she's breaking her silence now, we have to start not with Harry's bold move, but with the slow and deliberate tension that's been building in the shadows. A tension that's reached boiling point. For months, insiders close to the Sussex circle have quietly reported an increasing emotional distance between Meghan and Harry. Subtle, at first. A missed glance here. An awkward pause there. The lack of shared projects in public. No new podcasts, no documentaries. Public events where Harry shows up alone, smiling, calm, but just slightly off. While Meghan's appearance, ever polished, began to carry a different weight. Like someone playing defense in a game she once dominated. And then came the shift. 5 minutes. That's all it took. 5 minutes of live footage from an unexpected charity event in London, where Harry, unaccompanied, unannounced, stood alongside a collection of people he had long avoided. Faces the public hadn't seen him interact with since before the royal split. Former aides, ex-military friends, even Princess Catherine's private secretary. The moment was captured on multiple angles, fed instantly to broadcast newsrooms and social media. Meghan was nowhere to be seen. No mention of her in the itinerary. No acknowledgement in the speech. And for those watching closely, Harry's choice of words was far from accidental. He referenced the strength of family bonds and the healing power of time. He spoke of moving forward with forgiveness. For a man who once said his family trapped him and that Meghan saved him from royal misery, the change in tone was nothing short of seismic. Was it coded language? A signal? Or was it something much deeper? Harry's own way of reclaiming a narrative he'd let slip from his grasp? But the moment that sent tremors into Meghan's world came just seconds later. After the speech, as the cameras followed Harry through the crowd, he was seen embracing a man known to have been one of Meghan's earliest critics inside the royal household. A man Harry had previously cut off, reportedly at Meghan's insistence. The embrace wasn't just civil. It was warm, familiar, as if years of silence and hurt had been wiped away. For Meghan, watching from California, this wasn't just a betrayal. This was a message, and it was loud. By the time British tabloids ran the footage with headlines like, "Harry returns to his own," Meghan was already on the phone with key advisors. Her inner circle, now smaller than ever, went into emergency mode. Sources close to the Duchess say she was blindsided and deeply hurt that Harry not only reconnected with people they both viewed as enemies, but did it in the full glare of the public spotlight. But what pushed her to speak out, to unleash that now infamous quote, wasn't just the event. It was what followed. The palace issued a brief but calculated statement. The Duke of Sussex remains a valued member of the family. 7 words, but each loaded like a bullet. The wording sent shockwaves. It was the first time in years that the palace referred to Harry with such warmth and clarity. No subtle digs. No veiled rebukes. Just a calm, confident acknowledgement, almost like an olive branch. Or perhaps a victory lap. For Meghan, that line said everything. The system she and Harry had spent years breaking away from, the very monarchy she accused of silencing and isolating her, was suddenly being welcomed back into Harry's heart. And it was happening without her. Worse. It was happening at her expense. That's where the quote came from. They used him as a puppet, and he still doesn't see it. A close friend of Meghan's reportedly passed it along to a sympathetic media outlet. Whether that friend was authorized to speak or not is still unclear. What matters is the impact. The words blew open the carefully managed silence around the Sussex marriage. They hinted at internal cracks, at manipulation, at a level of emotional betrayal that couldn't be disguised with smiles or rehearsed speeches. Now the public is asking, is Meghan right? Has Harry been manipulated by a system he once despised? Or is Meghan trying to deflect from a deeper truth, one where Harry is finally making decisions for himself? It's not the first time Meghan has hinted that outside forces were targeting Harry. But this time, the stakes are different. There's less sympathy, more suspicion. The Sussex brand, once bulletproof after the Oprah interview, has taken hits from every angle. Failed deals, canceled shows, critical documentaries. And while Meghan has tried to reposition herself with lifestyle branding and Hollywood connections, Harry has drifted into quieter spaces, appearing at solo events, taking on personal projects, and now, reconnecting with the very world he once abandoned. This isn't a one-time fallout. This is a slow, strategic unraveling of power. A quiet war for influence, happening between royal corridors and West Coast estates. What's truly shocking isn't that Meghan broke her silence. It's that she had to. That Harry's move forced her hand. That in her view, he's become so blind to the forces guiding him, he can't even see the betrayal. But what if this isn't about betrayal at all? What if Harry is finally seeing clearly, and the person being left behind isn't the puppet, but the puppeteer? In the hours following Meghan's remark, the public conversation ignited with intensity. Royal watchers split down the middle. Some echo Meghan's concern. The palace is playing Harry, wrapping him back into the fold to control the narrative. Others say Harry is simply reclaiming agency, finally standing on his own 2 feet after years of being shaped, first by the monarchy, then by Meghan. Wherever the truth lies, one thing is clear, the silence has ended. And with that silence shattered, every move from here on will be under a microscope. In this video, we're going to dissect every layer of this royal rupture. From the quiet strategy that led Harry back into palace hands, to Meghan's crumbling trust and the shocking decisions she's reportedly preparing to make in retaliation. We'll examine the role of insiders, the spin war in the media, and the potential consequences for the couple's future. By the time we're done, you'll not only understand what really happened behind those headlines, but why it matters more now than ever. So, buckle up, because this isn't just about Harry and Meghan. This is about legacy, power, and the devastating cost of choosing independence in a world built on tradition. Purpose. Reveal Prince Harry's action that sparked the storm and why Meghan viewed it as the ultimate betrayal. Provide real-time reaction, emotional implications, and strategic context. It was unannounced, untelevised in advance, and yet the footage would go viral in less than 5 minutes. Prince Harry, long absent from any royal-sanctioned event in the United Kingdom, emerged in London's Royal Botanical Hall, stepping onto a stage that had been prepared under the tightest secrecy. The event? A mental health initiative tied to British military veterans, a cause close to Harry's heart, but one he had distanced himself from publicly since his departure from royal duties. There were no press statements ahead of time. No trailers, no promotional build-up. It was meant to be a quiet return. But there's nothing quiet about the appearance of a prince whose departure had once rocked Buckingham Palace to its core. Especially not when the audience is stacked with figures from Harry's past, some of whom, insiders claim, were deemed persona non grata by Meghan Markle herself. When Harry walked on stage, he was greeted with roaring applause. He looked different. Not in appearance, his beard was the same, his eyes sharp, but in energy. He was relaxed, grounded. More importantly, he wasn't walking in anyone's shadow. His speech was short, but impactful. For those listening closely, it was a departure from his usual tone. Gone were the sharp rebukes of the media. Absent were the veiled allusions to royal mistreatment. Instead, he spoke with the calm of someone who had made peace with the past, or was, at the very least, determined to rewrite it. He began by thanking the audience not just for showing up, but for staying the course. A phrase veterans use often. But then came a line that triggered a storm Meghan likely never saw coming. In the hardest seasons of life, it's the people you once walked away from that show you who you still are. The audience, mostly military men and women who had once served alongside him, sat frozen for a split second. Some exchanged glances. Others smiled. The applause returned. But that sentence was no accident. In it, Harry acknowledged his past ties, ones he had publicly cut off when he left royal life. The implication? He was back. Not to resume duty, but to reattach roots. The true shock, however, came moments later during the reception. A brief behind-the-scenes clip captured Harry in warm conversation with none other than Captain James Holloway, one of the most controversial figures linked to Meghan and Harry's exit. Holloway was a former communications aide for Prince William. He had allegedly been behind a damaging leak in 2018, one that painted Meghan as demanding and erratic toward staff. At the time, Meghan's team called it character assassination. Harry reportedly stopped all contact with Holloway after the story broke. And yet, there they were, laughing, hugging, talking with a familiarity that stunned observers. It didn't matter what words were spoken, the image alone shattered assumptions. Within moments, screenshots flooded social media. British tabloids published side-by-side comparisons of Holloway's past quotes and the footage of him smiling with Harry. The Daily Mirror ran a brutal headline: "Old friends, new alliances, has Prince Harry finally come home?" Meghan, thousands of miles away in Montecito, had no warning. By noon, the media cycle had shifted from surprise royal appearance to possible reconciliation. News anchors speculated about Harry's body language, his choice of words, and the potential olive branches being extended by the palace. A BBC commentator asked on live television, was this Harry's way of signaling to the royals and the world that he's ready to mend the break? But for Meghan, there was no ambiguity. This wasn't a symbolic olive branch. It was a betrayal. Reports from within Meghan's circle say she learned of the event the same way everyone else did online. She hadn't been informed, consulted, or warned. And that omission wasn't just personal. It was strategic. According to a source who once worked closely with the Sussexes, Harry always looped Meghan into his public appearances. They coordinated everything. The fact that she didn't know meant one thing: he wanted it that way. The implications of that were devastating. It meant that Harry, once deeply protective of shielding Meghan from palace politics, was now making deliberate moves independently. Moves that didn't include her. Moves that, worse still, brought him back into the orbit of people who had once been considered their enemies. The reaction inside Meghan's home was said to be immediate and visceral. According to a staff member who requested anonymity, Meghan demanded all press materials relating to the event be printed and reviewed. Every photo, every caption, every mention of Holloway. One source close to her described her mood as a mix of fury, panic, and heartbreak. She reportedly asked aloud, "Why would he do this? Why would he humiliate me like this?" The comment wasn't rhetorical. It was rooted in years of history. When Meghan joined the royal family, she quickly realized that alliances inside the palace weren't just about titles or jobs, they were about loyalty. And loyalty, in that world, is currency. For her, the moment Harry turned his back on people like Holloway was proof of his devotion. Now, he was shaking hands with ghosts of betrayal. She saw it as Harry undoing everything they had built together. But perhaps most damning was the palace's official response. Within hours of Harry's appearance, a single-line statement was released to the press by a senior royal aide. It read, "The Duke of Sussex remains a valued member of the family." It was short, deliberate, and fully devoid of ambiguity. The statement made no mention of Meghan. It did not refer to the couple. It spoke only of Harry, as if to reassert his solo identity apart from the brand they had created together. To Meghan, that sentence was chilling. It told her everything she needed to know about the palace's intentions and Harry's complicity. Because to her, Harry wasn't just being welcomed back. He was being absorbed, folded into the system she had fought so hard to flee. And he was doing it willingly. Insiders say this is why Meghan finally spoke out, or rather, allowed her silence to be broken. The now viral quote attributed to her, "They used him as a puppet. And he still doesn't see it," didn't come from a press release. It didn't come from an interview. It came from a private conversation with a friend. But that friend, perhaps knowingly, repeated the quote to a sympathetic media outlet, framing it as Meghan's unofficial reaction. The public devoured it. In just hours, hashtags like #PuppetPrince and #MeghanWasRight were trending on Twitter. Some users mocked Meghan, calling her paranoid and controlling. Others defended her, claiming Harry was indeed falling back under palace control. But what everyone agreed on was this: the dynamics had shifted. Prince Harry was no longer just Meghan's partner. He was once again a player in the royal game. And this time, he wasn't just being spoken about. He was making the moves himself. The most haunting detail in all this is perhaps the simplest: Meghan didn't see it coming. Not because she was blind, but because she believed Harry wouldn't make a decision of this magnitude without her. She was wrong. Inside a sun-drenched Montecito estate thousands of miles away from London, Meghan Markle was unaware that her world was about to be flipped on its head. It started like any other morning: emails from her team, press clippings from overnight news cycles, and a soft hum of household normalcy that she had curated carefully since stepping back from royal life. Then, the first alert came through. Then a second. Then an explosion. Within minutes, Meghan's phone was flooded with links, screenshots, and messages. A clip of Prince Harry at the London charity event had gone viral. She stared at the screen, silent at first, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. There was Harry, standing beside former palace allies, men and women she had considered political adversaries, if not outright enemies. Men who had once whispered things about her to the press, who helped craft a narrative that nearly destroyed her public image. Men Harry had once promised never to speak to again. At first, the shock was physical. A rush of cold in her chest, a tightening in her jaw. She wasn't just blindsided, she was struck in a place deeper than betrayal. This was erosion, not a rupture. A slow, creeping horror that the foundation of her marriage, the unity against the world, had cracked quietly, and she hadn't even noticed it. She asked no one in particular, "Why is he with them?" Her assistant, standing just a few feet away, had no answer. No warning had been given. No event had been scheduled. Harry hadn't mentioned a thing about a trip to London. Not to his staff, not to their joint team, and not to Meghan. For a woman known to run tight operations, this felt like a secret escape route had been planned right under her nose. Meghan moved fast. She requested every piece of footage, every article, every social media post. The living room became a command center. Her legal advisor was placed on hold. Her brand director was pulled from a call. Everyone dropped what they were doing and focused on one task: control the narrative before it consumes them. But this wasn't a PR crisis in the conventional sense. This wasn't just about what Harry did. It was about what it meant. There he was, not just appearing at a palace-linked event, but standing shoulder to shoulder with men who had characterized Meghan as difficult, manipulative, and not a team player. Harry's embrace with Captain James Holloway was particularly painful. She had seen the emails. She knew who leaked what. She knew how that man had shaped damaging press that almost cost her everything. And now Harry, the man who once raged on her behalf, was sharing laughter and warmth with him. That's when it happened. She slammed her phone down and said, "They're using him." They always were. Everyone in the room froze. They didn't interrupt. They had seen Meghan emotional before, angry, frustrated, even panicked. But this was different. This was wounded, deeply personal. A voice cracked not by rage, but by disappointment. Over the next hour, Meghan reportedly went through stages: denial, anger, sadness, then an eerie, chilling clarity. According to a former staffer familiar with that day, Meghan stopped pacing and said aloud, "They used him as a puppet, and he still doesn't see it." That phrase hung in the air like a sentence in a courtroom. Final, convicting. It wasn't a media statement. It wasn't a pre-scripted soundbite. It was raw. A friend, who had been video calling Meghan during part of the incident, heard it live. And later that day, as media requests swarmed their networks, the phrase was quietly slipped to a well-known tabloid reporter known to lean sympathetic to the Sussex side of the story. Within hours, the quote had been printed. And by the next morning, it was viral. Suddenly, Meghan was back in the headlines. Not as a duchess, not as a lifestyle mogul, but as a scorned wife. One who had just watched her partner seemingly walk back into the arms of the institution they had both fled together. And yet, it wasn't a coordinated media move. That's what made it all the more devastating. This wasn't a polished press release with brand-approved language. This wasn't the Archwell tone. It was a leak from a place of pain, and people knew it. It sounded too raw to be fake, too unscripted to be spin, which made it all the more powerful. Her words echoed across media platforms. They used him as a puppet, and he still doesn't see it. Royal commentators immediately pounced. Some declared it a declaration of war. Others saw it as desperation. A sign that Meghan was losing control of Harry, and worse, losing control of the narrative. But for Meghan, it wasn't about image anymore. It was about betrayal. Insiders say she retreated for a full day after the quote exploded online. No camera crews. No public walks. No Instagram teasers. She reportedly canceled an appearance with a luxury wellness brand she had been slated to promote. Her focus was elsewhere, on the cracks forming in her personal life. According to one close friend, Meghan felt Harry's decision had not just blindsided her, it had undermined everything they had built. This wasn't just about attending a charity event, the friend reportedly said. This was about going back to the people who tried to destroy Meghan. That's how she saw it. As if Harry had walked into enemy territory without telling his closest ally. Some within Meghan's team feared the worst. A public fracture between the two of them would be disastrous, not just for their brand, but for their children, their supporters, their long-term identity as the modern ex-royals. Others believed Meghan might turn the moment to her advantage, leverage public sympathy, present herself as the misunderstood spouse still being targeted by the institution. But Meghan didn't move quickly. She paused. She waited. She said nothing officially. And that silence was, in its own way, deafening. For years, Meghan had been painted as the strategist, the puppeteer, the mastermind behind Harry's break from the family. And now, with one appearance, Harry had flipped that perception on its head. He had gone rogue. No advisors. No brand spin. Just Harry, seemingly on his own, reconnecting with the very establishment Meghan said had silenced her. What stung most, according to those close to Meghan, was not the political implication, it was the personal abandonment. This wasn't just a husband attending an event without his wife. This was a man stepping back into a former life that she had been excluded from, without even the courtesy of a warning. In Meghan's view, Harry was too trusting, too open to reconciliation, too quick to forget. She had always warned him, even privately, that the palace never truly lets go. That even after exile, there are always hands reaching out to pull you back in. Hands that don't come with love, but with intent. That's what she meant by puppet. To her, Harry hadn't made a move of his own. He had been lured, played, set up, pushed back into the fold with a carefully orchestrated event designed to look organic, but in truth calibrated to test how far he'd come from her. And the worst part? He'd passed the test. Willingly. Naively. But the real twist came in the hours that followed the leak. As Meghan stayed quiet and Harry refused to address the quote publicly, sources inside royal circles suggested that the palace was not surprised at Meghan's reaction. In fact, one aide allegedly said off the record, "We knew she'd feel cornered. This was always going to rattle her." If that's true, if Meghan's reaction was anticipated, then this wasn't just a royal event. It was a pressure point being pressed deliberately. And Meghan responded exactly as they expected. The game, it seemed, was no longer about public image. It was now psychological. Meghan had built a world around shared trauma, she and Harry versus the monarchy. But what happens when your co-pilot suddenly shifts the plane midair? She was alone, and every sense that mattered. At the time of writing, Meghan has not issued a public statement. She hasn't posted about it. She hasn't acknowledged it. But the silence itself is thunderous, and insiders suggest it won't last. According to a source close to a Hollywood production company in talks with Meghan, she's considering a new project, one centered around reclaiming identity in the aftermath of betrayal. The timing is suspicious, the theme unmistakable. One thing is certain, the next move won't be made in private. Behind every major royal drama, whispers of unseen hands guiding events have always circulated. In Meghan Markle's recent outburst, they used him as a puppet. The spotlight turns not only on Prince Harry's choices but, more critically, on those who may have influenced them. Who exactly are they? And what does Meghan's accusation reveal about the complex web of influence surrounding Harry? To understand this, we must explore the key players rumored to be pulling the strings. The palace establishment led by King Charles and Prince William, longtime royal courtiers and advisors, and Harry's so-called old friends, including former military comrades and inner-circle allies who once distanced themselves alongside the royal family. Starting at the top, King Charles has long been seen as the central figure in the palace's effort to manage the fallout from Harry and Meghan's exit. Despite the public show of support, insiders claim there has been a consistent behind-the-scenes push to reintegrate Harry, if not Meghan, back into the fold, ostensibly to preserve the monarchy's image and stabilize its future. Palace sources reveal that Charles's approach has been multi-layered: soft diplomatic gestures and public events, behind-the-scenes meetings, and carefully timed media leaks aimed at influencing Harry's mindset. His team reportedly coordinated several accidental run-ins between Harry and senior royal staff, designed to remind Harry of his place within the royal hierarchy. Prince William, Harry's older brother and heir apparent, is an even more complex figure in this narrative. While publicly appearing to maintain a cool distance, whispers suggest William has been an active participant in these reconciliation efforts. Some palace insiders describe William's strategy as a blend of tough love and subtle persuasion, aiming to bring Harry back into family alignment without alienating him completely. The brothers' strained relationship has long been a subject of media speculation, but according to close sources, William has used his influence over mutual friends and aides to shape Harry's choices. This network of old friends includes a group of former military personnel and royal aides who had previously supported Harry's separation but now reportedly work to pull him back. One such figure is Captain James Holloway, whose recent warm interaction with Harry at the charity event sparked Meghan's fury. Holloway's history is controversial. He was allegedly involved in leaks damaging to Meghan's reputation, fueling the narrative of her being difficult and divisive within palace circles. To Meghan, Harry's reconciliation with Holloway symbolizes not just a personal betrayal but a capitulation to palace forces she has long criticized. Beyond individuals, the palace employs an intricate system of courtiers and advisors skilled in media management and public relations. These puppet masters operate through leaks, narrative framing, and strategic appearances to steer public perception. Their influence extends to social media campaigns, selective press releases, and controlling which stories get amplified or suppressed. Meghan's claim that Harry is still blind to this manipulation underscores her belief that he remains vulnerable to these orchestrated moves, perhaps nostalgic for his former life or yearning for familial acceptance. However, some analysts argue that Harry's choices may reflect a more complex personal journey, one where reconciliation doesn't necessarily mean manipulation but rather a genuine desire for peace and family connection after years of turmoil. Nevertheless, Meghan's narrative frames these figures as antagonists, casting herself as the victim of a palace-driven plot to isolate her and reclaim Harry. As the story unfolds, understanding who these alleged puppet masters are and their motives is crucial to unraveling the larger drama between Harry and Meghan. This tangled web of influence reveals the enduring power of the monarchy's inner workings and the personal costs borne by those caught in its grip. Every story has a turning point, a moment when the trajectory shifts, and what once seemed certain begins to unravel or realign. For Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, that moment appears to have arrived sometime in late 2023, a period marked by subtle yet telling changes in Harry's behavior and public demeanor. Observers and insiders alike point to this time frame as the genesis of a slow but steady drift back toward the establishment Harry once rejected and the beginning of the rift now threatening his marriage. Before this turning point, Harry's public image was that of a man embattled but united with Meghan, fiercely protective and unapologetic about their break from royal tradition. Their joint interviews, projects, and appearances painted a picture of a couple aligned in their vision to carve out an independent path while addressing the painful scars of royal life. Yet, beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to form. One of the earliest signs was Harry's increasing withdrawal from joint public engagements. Where once the Sussexes appeared in tandem for high-profile causes and media productions, Harry began to accept solo invitations to charitable events, often closer to the UK and aligned with more traditional royal causes. These appearances carried a tone of quiet diplomacy rather than defiant independence. Simultaneously, Meghan's presence in public forums softened, with a pivot toward lifestyle branding and carefully curated wellness content. Some insiders interpreted this as a tacit acknowledgement of growing distance between the couple's public narratives. The personal toll of this divide became apparent in leaks of behind-the-scenes conversations and offhand remarks captured by palace insiders. Staff close to Harry reported overhearing moments of doubt and exhaustion, where Harry expressed feeling caught between worlds and not sure who I'm meant to be anymore. Meghan, conversely, remained steadfast in her critique of palace influence, warning Harry repeatedly against what she called the slow slide back into old traps. Another key indicator of Harry's shifting allegiance was his renewed communication with long-estranged family members. Reports surfaced of private dinners with Prince William and Catherine, suggesting efforts at reconciliation that had been absent for years. These interactions reportedly involved candid conversations about family, duty, and the future of the monarchy. Some royal watchers argue that these meetings signaled a genuine desire from Harry to heal familial rifts and secure a place within the royal framework, perhaps motivated by concerns over his children's future roles and stability. Yet, for Meghan, these developments represented a turning tide against everything they had fought for. The prospect of Harry re-engaging with those she believed had undermined her fostered feelings of isolation and mistrust. According to close sources, Meghan cautioned Harry that the palace's attempts at rapprochement were a strategic trap designed to lure him away from her influence and back into an environment hostile to their shared vision. The divergence in their paths became even more apparent during private discussions regarding upcoming projects. Harry reportedly expressed reservations about continuing with some of Meghan's media ventures, questioning their timing and potential impact on his relationship with the royal family. Meghan, in response, grew frustrated, perceiving these doubts as a sign of waning support. This internal conflict reached a public crescendo in Harry's speech at the 2024 Invictus Games, an event he founded and has passionately supported. While the speech was well received, observers noted a change in tone, less focus on personal hardship and more emphasis on unity and healing. He spoke about finding common ground and building bridges, phrases that contrasted sharply with his earlier calls for transparency and reform. Media analysts interpreted this shift as indicative of Harry's evolving mindset, possibly influenced by palace courtiers and family discussions. It was a subtle but unmistakable pivot toward reconciliation. Meghan's camp viewed this evolution with increasing concern. They feared that Harry's changing stance risked undermining their joint brand and narrative. Reports emerged of tension in private meetings, with Meghan urging Harry to stay true to their shared mission, while Harry appeared to be navigating a growing sense of responsibility toward his heritage. Ultimately, this turning point reveals a complex emotional and strategic struggle. Harry finds himself balancing personal loyalty to Meghan with familial bonds and institutional pressures. Meghan is grappling with feelings of betrayal and the challenge of preserving their independence. As the divide widens, the question remains, will Harry's shift bring healing or further fracture? And how will Meghan respond to a partner whose vision no longer fully aligns with hers? In the shadowed corridors of royal power, isolation can be both a weapon and a prison. For Meghan Markle, the journey after joining the British royal family quickly transformed into a battle against forces she claimed sought to erode not only her influence but her very presence within the institution. Her recent remarks accusing those around Prince Harry of manipulating him as a puppet are deeply intertwined with long-standing allegations of isolation and sabotage claims that continue to fuel the turmoil within the Sussex marriage. From the earliest days of her arrival, Meghan's camp reported an atmosphere hostile to her integration into royal life. Sources close to the Duchess have repeatedly described an unwelcoming environment rife with internal resistance, passive-aggressive behavior, and strategic marginalization. Staff turnover was unusually high in the Sussex household, and leaks to the press, often unflattering and sometimes outright false, were frequent. Meghan herself openly spoke of feeling cut off from traditional royal support networks. A former aide recalled her lamenting the lack of trusted confidants within the palace, noting that many employees were wary or even fearful of associating too closely with her, given the intense scrutiny she faced. This sense of isolation extended beyond personnel to systemic challenges. Meghan's attempts to launch charitable initiatives and public campaigns were reportedly met with bureaucratic hurdles and subtle undermining by senior palace officials, who questioned her methods and intentions. These obstacles often forced Meghan to navigate a labyrinth of approvals and restrictions far more complex than those encountered by other members of the royal family. Compounding these difficulties were deliberate efforts by certain factions to paint Meghan as a divisive figure. Anonymous leaks to sympathetic media outlets portrayed her as difficult, demanding, and out of touch with royal traditions. One particularly damaging story alleged that Meghan had bullied staff members, a narrative Meghan vehemently denied, but which contributed to public skepticism and internal distrust. Meghan's legal battles over privacy breaches and defamatory coverage further illustrate the extent of the challenges she faced. Her pursuit of justice against tabloid intrusion was a double-edged sword, drawing both sympathy and criticism, and often intensifying palace attempts to distance themselves from controversy. Within this context, Meghan's assertion that Harry was manipulated into turning against her gains weight. She believed that not only was she isolated, but that efforts were underway to sever Harry's allegiance to her and to her vision for their family's future. These efforts, she alleged, came in the form of orchestrated media narratives, carefully managed social events designed to reintroduce Harry to former associates, and private conversations aimed at sowing doubt. Multiple insiders confirmed that Harry's circle included individuals who had long-standing loyalties to the palace and who viewed Meghan with suspicion or outright hostility. Their influence, combined with Harry's own internal conflicts, created a perfect storm of pressure pushing him back toward traditional royal alignments. Meghan's frustration with this dynamic is palpable. According to sources close to her, she often expressed feeling as though she was fighting a war on two fronts. Against the external media forces and the internal palace machinations. This dual struggle strained her emotionally and physically, contributing to reports of tension within the marriage. At times, Meghan reportedly felt abandoned by allies she once trusted, further intensifying her sense of isolation. Hollywood friends who had once supported the Sussexes began distancing themselves amid the evolving controversies. Some advisors recommended stepping back from public life, while others advocated for more aggressive media strategies, reflecting a lack of consensus on how to navigate the mounting challenges. Financial pressures also played a role. The Sussexes' move away from royal funding sources led to a need to generate income through media deals and branding, ventures that occasionally sparked disagreements and public criticism. Meghan's efforts to build a lifestyle brand and media presence were complicated by these pressures, as well as by the ongoing personal and institutional battles. Within this maelstrom, Meghan's declaration that Harry was still blind to being used as a puppet underscores a deep emotional rift. She saw his recent actions, notably his solo appearance with palace affiliates, as signs of his growing susceptibility to the very forces isolating her. Whether this perception is accurate or reflects the frustrations of a strained partnership, it highlights the profound difficulties they face in maintaining unity. This chapter of Meghan's experience is a testament to the intense psychological toll of navigating a hostile environment, where trust is fragile and alliances are fluid. It also raises questions about the nature of influence, loyalty, and power within one of the world's most enduring and scrutinized institutions. As the Sussex saga continues to unfold, Meghan's claims of isolation and sabotage remain a critical lens through which to understand the tensions between the couple and the broader battle for control over their narrative and their future. In the centuries-old institution of the British monarchy, time is both an ally and a weapon. The royal family is no stranger to patient strategy, carefully crafted messaging, and behind-the-scenes maneuvers that shape narratives over months or even years. The unfolding saga of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle is no exception. The palace's approach, as insiders reveal, has been a textbook example of playing the long game, methodically working to draw Harry back into the fold, gradually weakening Meghan's influence, and ultimately reasserting control over the story. Unlike the dramatic headlines and sensational leaks, much of the palace's work occurs in subtle, nearly invisible ways. From deliberate public appearances designed to signal reconciliation, to orchestrated media stories and carefully timed leaks, the monarchy's strategy balances patience with pressure. One of the key components has been a series of soft diplomatic overtures aimed at Harry. While public statements remained formal and reserved, behind closed doors, emissaries close to King Charles and Prince William engaged in multiple private conversations with Harry. These meetings focused on family unity, duty, and legacy, often emphasizing the import. Rather than confronting Harry with ultimatums, these discussions used gentle persuasion and appeals to emotion. Trusted intermediaries highlighted the benefits of returning to the royal fold, not only in terms of personal relationships but also regarding his children's place in history. Simultaneously, the palace worked to reframe public perception of Harry. Press releases and carefully placed stories began to soften their tone toward the Duke of Sussex, referring to him increasingly as a valued family member and emphasizing his charitable work. These subtle shifts helped create an atmosphere where a public rapprochement felt natural and inevitable. The recent charity event Harry attended alone was not a spontaneous decision. It was the culmination of months of behind-the-scenes planning, intended to serve as a symbolic step toward reintegration. Inviting Harry to an event featuring familiar faces from his past was a deliberate choice designed to test his willingness to reconnect and signal openness to reconciliation. Moreover, the palace's media team has mastered the art of controlled leaks, delivering stories that portray Harry as a man seeking peace, while casting Meghan as the outsider struggling to adapt. This narrative has been reinforced by intermittent reports of tensions within the Sussex household, feeding the perception of a widening rift. Palace courtiers also leveraged Harry's known vulnerabilities, including his emotional struggles and desire for familial approval. By positioning themselves as sources of support and understanding, they slowly eroded the barriers that Meghan and her team had built around him. Interestingly, palace insiders describe these efforts as measured and respectful, avoiding the heavy-handed tactics that might provoke backlash. The goal is not public humiliation but subtle influence, guiding Harry back without igniting further conflict. The involvement of Prince William has been particularly pivotal. As the future king, William's relationship with Harry carries both personal and institutional weight. Reports indicate that William has taken a role in encouraging Harry's return, framing it as necessary for the stability of the monarchy and the well-being of their shared family. This soft diplomacy extends beyond family members to include key royal aides and military contacts. Many of these figures have long-standing loyalties and are seen as bridges between Harry's past and present. Their presence at recent events and their re-established communication with Harry serve as both personal comfort and strategic signaling. However, this long game is not without risks. The palace must balance its desire to reconcile with Harry against the potential fallout from Meghan's camp, which views these moves as manipulative and exclusionary. Missteps could further alienate the Sussexes and damage the monarchy's public standing. For Meghan, the palace's strategy feels like a siege, patient, unyielding, and designed to wear her down. Her sense of isolation and suspicion toward these maneuvers reflects a profound mistrust, one that colors her interpretation of Harry's actions. As this slow but steady campaign continues, the palace remains confident in its ability to guide Harry back, hoping that time and subtle influence will overcome past grievances. Understanding this strategic patience sheds light on the complexities behind Harry's recent moves and Meghan's growing sense of betrayal. It reveals a monarchy adept at playing the long game, where the smallest gestures carry the weight of generations in the future of a dynasty. When the Sussexes signed their groundbreaking multi-million-dollar deal with Netflix in 2020, the world watched with anticipation. It was a bold move, a chance for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to redefine their public image and build an independent brand far from the royal spotlight. Yet, as years passed, that deal evolved into a tangled web of creative disagreements, strategic missteps, and mounting tension, particularly between Meghan and Harry, ultimately complicating their public unity and fueling the very divisions that now threaten their relationship. Initially, the Netflix partnership was heralded as a new chapter for the couple. Projects ranged from documentaries highlighting social causes to scripted dramas inspired by personal stories. For Meghan especially, Netflix represented not just a business opportunity, but a platform to amplify her voice, champion issues close to her heart, and craft a narrative beyond royal headlines. However, behind the scenes, challenges quickly emerged. Sources within the production teams described a creative tug-of-war between Harry and Meghan, as well as between the Sussexes and Netflix executives. Meghan's vision leaned heavily into lifestyle, wellness, and empowerment themes, seeking to position herself as a role model and influencer in the modern world. Harry, meanwhile, was increasingly cautious, focused more on documentary storytelling connected to veteran affairs and environmental advocacy. The divergence in their interests resulted in internal conflict. Harry reportedly grew wary of certain Netflix projects he felt were too self-promotional or disconnected from his values. Meghan, on the other hand, pushed aggressively for broader, sometimes riskier, ventures that aligned with her personal brand ambitions. As the tension simmered, cracks appeared in their collaborative efforts. Netflix executives expressed frustration over delays and changing priorities, while media insiders speculated about disagreements spilling into their personal lives. Some reports suggested Harry began distancing himself from Meghan's initiatives, choosing to focus on solo appearances and independent ventures. This creative rift coincided with the palace's soft re-engagement with Harry. Insiders speculate that as Harry reconnected with his family and former associates, his appetite for high-profile media projects with Meghan diminished. He seemed increasingly reluctant to be involved in projects perceived as controversial or overly commercial. For Meghan, this shift was a blow, not just professionally but personally. The Netflix deal was her flagship platform, her chance to cement a post-royal identity. Harry's withdrawal felt like a retreat, a sign of fracturing unity. Complicating matters, some of Meghan's projects faced public and critical backlash. The lifestyle brand she developed alongside Netflix drew criticism for being too self-obsessed or disconnected from grassroots issues. These critiques, often amplified by tabloid coverage, added pressure on the Sussex brand and strained their public image further. At the same time, the Sussexes faced contractual challenges. As projects stalled or were shelved, the financial pressures mounted. The lucrative Netflix deal, initially seen as a financial safety net, began to look less stable. In private discussions, Meghan reportedly expressed frustration that Harry was not fully committed to their joint ventures. She viewed his distancing as not only a lack of support, but a betrayal of their shared vision. Harry, conversely, felt overwhelmed by the demands of celebrity media and sought simpler, more meaningful engagements. This dynamic fed into the growing perception of division between the couple. Media outlets seized on rumors of disagreements over business decisions, further straining their public partnership. Moreover, the Netflix dilemma exposed the challenge of balancing commercial interests with personal values, a balance complicated by the couple's complex relationship with the royal institution and the intense public scrutiny they faced. For Meghan, the stakes were high. The success or failure of their Netflix ventures directly impacted her future career and public influence. The unraveling of this partnership was not just a business issue, but a symbol of deeper relational fractures. As Harry gravitated back toward royal causes and old allies, Meghan's position within their shared brand weakened. The Netflix dilemma thus became a microcosm of the broader tensions, competing visions, diverging priorities, and the painful reality of a couple struggling to maintain a united front. Understanding these behind-the-scenes struggles offers vital insight into the mounting pressures between Harry and Meghan, and why Meghan's recent accusations resonate beyond personal grievances, reflecting complex battles over identity, loyalty, and legacy. In the turbulent world of celebrity and royalty, the strength of a person's inner circle often dictates their ability to withstand public storms and private betrayals. For Meghan Markle, the once expansive network of supporters and advisors has undergone significant shifts amid escalating tensions with Prince Harry and the royal establishment. Understanding who remains in Meghan's corner is crucial to grasping the full scope of the Sussex saga and the challenges she faces moving forward. At the peak of their joint emergence from royal life, Meghan's circle was a powerful blend of Hollywood allies, legal experts, PR strategists, and trusted family confidants. Her friendship with high-profile figures such as Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry was both personal and strategic, offering her platforms to shape narratives and access resources far beyond the British Isles. Oprah, in particular, played a pivotal role, famously conducting the landmark Sussex interview that reshaped global conversations about the monarchy and race. Tyler Perry, a longtime confidant, provided a safe space and creative support, including housing Meghan and Harry during transitional periods and collaborating on media projects. However, as tensions mounted, cracks appeared even within this once formidable network. Some Hollywood allies have reportedly grown cautious, wary of the intense media scrutiny and controversies surrounding Meghan. The high-profile nature of her disputes has made sustained support complicated, as some celebrities prefer to avoid entanglement in royal dramas that risk polarizing public opinion. Within her legal and PR teams, restructuring has been frequent. Advisors have come and gone, some departing due to disagreements over strategy or concerns about public backlash. Meghan's commitment to privacy and control has sometimes clashed with the media's relentless demand for information, placing her advisors in difficult positions. Despite these shifts, several key figures remain steadfast. Meghan's legal counsel, for example, continues to aggressively defend her privacy and reputation in ongoing lawsuits and media battles. Their presence underscores her determination to protect herself against what she perceives as a coordinated campaign to undermine her. In the world of communications, Meghan still relies on a core team skilled in narrative management and crisis response. These professionals orchestrate her public appearances, social media strategies, and brand partnerships, aiming to balance transparency with discretion. Family remains an essential pillar. Meghan's mother, Doria Ragland, though living a quieter life away from the public eye, reportedly provides emotional support and grounding. Meghan has publicly credited Doria with being a source of strength during challenging times. Close friends, some from Meghan's pre-royal days in Los Angeles, continue to offer personal support. These relationships serve as vital refuges from the pressures of global scrutiny and palace politics. However, the intense spotlight has tested even these bonds, with some friends reportedly urging Meghan to take steps toward greater privacy and emotional well-being. Interestingly, Meghan's recent ventures into lifestyle branding and wellness communities have introduced new allies and audiences. Collaborations with figures in fashion, health, and social justice circles have expanded her network beyond traditional celebrity and royal domains, signaling a strategic pivot toward a more independent public identity. Nevertheless, the shrinking of Meghan's inner circle is a double-edged sword. While a tighter group can foster deeper trust and loyalty, it also limits resources and influence, especially in the high-stakes environment of royal media battles. In this light, Meghan's feelings of isolation take on new meaning. Her accusations that Harry is being used as a puppet contrast sharply with her perception of being sidelined, both within their marriage and in the broader public arena. As the Sussex story continues, the loyalty and resilience of Meghan's inner circle will be tested. Their capacity to support her through media storms, legal challenges, and personal trials will significantly shape her path forward. This complex interplay of alliances, departures, and new connections reveals much about Meghan's current position, both as an individual and as part of a fractured partnership navigating unprecedented pressures. In today's hyper-connected world, private communications can quickly become public spectacles, and for high-profile figures like Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the line between confidential conversation and viral sensation is razor-thin. Leaked messages, voice notes, and recordings have become a critical part of the unfolding Sussex saga, offering rare glimpses into their personal struggles, tensions, and sometimes contradictory narratives. These leaks, whether intentional or accidental, have fueled speculation and deepened public fascination with the couple's internal dynamics. Over the past year, a series of purported leaked communications have surfaced, many allegedly sourced from former staffers, royal aides, or individuals close to the Sussex household. Some of these materials, circulated on social media or reported by tabloids, paint a complex picture of a marriage under strain and a relationship complicated by external pressures and internal disagreements. One particularly notable instance involved a series of text messages between Harry and Meghan that appeared on an anonymous leak website. In these messages, the tone fluctuated dramatically from affectionate and supportive to tense and frustrated. Observers pointed to exchanges where Meghan expressed concerns over palace interference, while Harry appeared torn between loyalty to her and to his family. Critics questioned the authenticity and ethics of releasing such private conversations, but the impact was undeniable. These leaks fueled narratives of discord, betrayal, and miscommunication, which dominated headlines and social discourse. Beyond texts, reports emerged of audio recordings capturing heated discussions between the couple, leaked allegedly by staff or security personnel. In one leaked snippet, Meghan is heard voicing frustration over media intrusion and what she describes as constant sabotage. Harry, in another segment, expresses exhaustion and confusion over conflicting loyalties. While the veracity of these recordings is difficult to independently verify, their existence has exacerbated tensions, giving critics ammunition and supporters cause for sympathy. In addition to exchanges between the Sussexes, leaked communications involving palace officials and royal aides have shed light on the efforts to manage Harry and Meghan's public image and personal affairs. These leaks reveal intricate planning sessions, media strategy debates, and occasional disagreements about how best to handle crises. One leaked email thread suggested that palace communications teams coordinated with journalists to subtly shift public opinion, highlighting Harry's charitable works while downplaying Meghan's controversies. Such revelations contribute to Meghan's claims of systemic manipulation and isolation. However, some leaked materials also suggest moments of warmth and reconciliation behind the scenes. Photos and video clips released without authorization show Harry and Meghan sharing quiet, tender moments, reminders that, despite public turmoil, their personal relationship is nuanced and multifaceted. The role of these leaks is double-edged. On one hand, they expose the relentless scrutiny and invasion of privacy the couple endures, often fueling public empathy. On the other, they risk deepening rifts by broadcasting private struggles and feeding sensationalist media cycles. For Meghan, the leaks represent a betrayal not only by external adversaries but sometimes by those within her trusted circle. The exposure of intimate conversations contributes to her sense of vulnerability and fuels her belief that they used him as a puppet, implying that external forces manipulate even the most personal aspects of their lives. Harry's reaction to the leaks has been mixed. Publicly, he has condemned the invasions of privacy and expressed frustration with media intrusion. Privately, sources say he grapples with feelings of helplessness and conflict, caught between protecting his family and maintaining transparency. The Sussexes have taken legal action in several cases, suing media outlets and individuals responsible for unauthorized disclosures. These efforts underscore their commitment to privacy but also highlight the difficulty of controlling narratives in the digital age. As new leaks continue to surface sporadically, their influence on public perception and the couple's personal dynamics remain significant. They offer fragmented, often contradictory snapshots of a relationship navigating unprecedented public and institutional pressures. Understanding the role of leaked messages and recordings is essential to appreciating the complexities underlying Meghan's recent statements in the broader Sussex story. These intimate fragments reveal the human struggles beneath royal headlines, the vulnerabilities exploited by media and palace politics, and the challenges of maintaining unity in the spotlight's harsh glare. In this explosive moment, Meghan breaks her silence with a searing claim: they used him as a puppet, and he still doesn't see it. Tonight, we reveal how palace insiders and Harry's closest old friends may have manipulated him into turning against Meghan, calling his recent actions weak and cowardly. Why did Harry make this bold, shocking move alone? What does it mean for their marriage, their future, and the royal family's power struggle? Stay tuned as we unpack every jaw-dropping detail you won't hear anywhere else.